I'm about to read One of Us is Lion by Karen M. McManus. This book is kind of sold as if Pretty Little Liars and The Breakfast Club were kind of fused together, which sounds pretty cool in my opinion. And so from my understanding, this book, where The Breakfast Club kind of idea comes from, is that there are five students. There's like the jock, there's the popular girl, there's the nerdy guy, like all of that stuff. And then they are all put into detention, but then by the time detention is over, only 4 of them come out because the other one has been killed. And so nobody is kind of explaining like what happened, how that character like died and all this stuff, but he had like this gossip website and a bunch of stuff about a bunch of different like classmates and stuff starts to get published even after he's dead. So it's kind of like Gossip Girl, except like with murder, but then also like Pretty Little Liars, because if you've watched the show or read the books, then you know like A likes to expose this kind of stuff about the characters. So it sounds really, really cool. And I think I vaguely heard about it, but haven't really looked into it. I think there's a TV show actually for it as well, but I don't know if I trust TV shows based on books, to be honest. So yeah, sounds like a pretty good book. I'm excited for it. And yeah, hopefully I'm not able to figure out who is the liar and who killed the character. So yeah, without further ado, let's just crack this book right open. I'm really feeling mystery today. So I'm about 100 pages into One of Us is Lion, and here are my thoughts so far. I'm enjoying this book so far. It really is living up to the Breakfast Club meets Pretty Little Liars vibe. So there's this guy, Simon, and he is like the school gossip. He has this like blog called About That, where he posts gossip about the school. So very similar to Gossip Girl. And so he ends up in detention, as well as 4 other students, Bronwyn, who is like an academic kind of scholar. She's really great at math. She wants to get into Yale. Nate, who is kind of like the notorious bad boy drug dealer. Addy, who is kind of like the princessy kind of girl who's like really obsessed with her boyfriend and unfortunately does not make decisions for herself. And then the last one is Cooper, and he is really, really good at baseball to the point where he's probably going to get a scholarship to go into like the big leagues and all of that. So these 5 characters all end up in detention, but only 4 of them come out. And so we get first person point of view of every single one of these characters, but they all have their own secrets that they don't want to come to light. And so it makes them all suspects, right? Because they're all in detention. The teacher has to step out for a moment. And in that time, Simon, who's deathly allergic to peanuts, drinks from a cup that had been fused with peanut oil that causes him to, get an allergic reaction. They go to run to the nurse to see if there's any EpiPens, but all the EpiPens are mysteriously just gone. And by the time the paramedics show up and get him on the stretcher, it's too late. And then these messages start to get posted on Tumblr where somebody is claiming that they were responsible for Simon's death, and then they make another post saying like, yeah, I watched him die. And it's like, so there was only 4 people there, so it's got to be one of you, right? Or are they all being framed? If I had to guess on which one is responsible, I want to put my money on Addy. And why I think that is because she is very easy to manipulate. So I don't think that she is a person who would actually go through with like a murder, but I think she's been coerced, because something that we see very often with her character, especially with her and her boyfriend Jake, is that he'll tell her, oh, your outfit's not cute, go change, kind of stuff, and she'll instantly go change. She won't question it. She'll do whatever he asks her to do, because she seems to have this really, really big fear of not having somebody with her, like somebody to really rely on and just spend all her time with. So he becomes her entire world, her entire personality. And he's red flag city, like so red flag that I could see him and maybe some of his friends or something, like not liking Simon. Maybe Simon had dirt on them. And then all of these characters were framed because they all ended up in detention because they had brought a phone into this guy's class, but the phones didn't belong to any of them. And they're like, who has 2 phones? And like, they know not to bring phones to this guy's class. And so it seems very, very set up. I actually don't think any of them are responsible, like the 4 in there. I think it's somebody else who's using Addy, is my theory. I also really like the kind of hints at a potential romance between Bronwyn and Nate because they are so different. He's like bad boy and she's smart, scholarly girl who wants to go to Yale. And they just, I don't know, there's just something about their interactions and I'm like, ooh, I like it, I like it. And then the other characters, I think Cooper's character is interesting because he's really, really good at what he does, but it's the only thing he's ever been doing his entire life. It's like, as soon as he could throw a baseball, it's like, okay, this is gonna be your life, you're gonna do this, like, you're gonna make enough money for the entire family kind of vibe. So a lot of pressure on him. And then for Bronwyn's character, there's a lot of pressure on her as well. And then Nate, unfortunately, like, he lives with an alcoholic father, so he doesn't really have the best life growing up. But on Addy's end, she actually has a pretty good family. She has her sister who's just like, they seem to be pretty close and they have each other. So yeah, it's an interesting cast of characters, definitely very Breakfast Club vibes. So yeah, I'm having a good time. So far, it's exactly what I expected it to be, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And yeah, so I'm gonna continue to read this book and I'll update you around the halfway mark. So I will see you then. So I'm now a little bit more than 100 pages into One of Us is Lying, and okay, my suspects have changed, as they do. I have a couple of ideas. I don't know, that's my working theory at least. So yeah, we're getting to learn our 4 main characters a little bit better. We'll also learn more about Simon, even though he's obviously deceased. And so we learn about all of this stuff that he's been posting for years and how really everybody has a good reason wanting him to meet his end. And so we're really focused on our main characters. And I will say that Addy's character development is really, really good. I'm really happy with the way that her character is just like continuing to grow, and we're like learning about her, and she's not so like timid anymore. So I really like her character development. It's really, really nice. And then just following along, like Bronwyn and Nate's relationship, I think is really cute. They're always on the phone together for like hours watching movies. I'm like, oh, cute. I really like that. And then we have Cooper, who I would say this part definitely focuses more on Cooper, like the part that I just finished, where we're kind of learning more about him and what his secrets are. And then before that, we learn more about kind of like Nate and Bronwyn, and then before that was Addy. So we're really getting to know all of the secrets that everybody has. Although I would say we don't really know Nate's big secret. Like, we all know that he was dealing, but I feel like there's more to it. Whereas the other characters, we've already kind of covered all of their bigger secrets, but I think there is still other secrets to be uncovered. But we will see, like, imagine one of them actually is responsible for the death. I don't know, but I'm enjoying this book. The characters feel very real. What I don't understand though, is I'm pretty sure, maybe it's different in the States, that's highly possible, but I'm pretty sure you are not allowed to reveal the identity of minors who are considered suspects or involved in something. But these kids' faces, their names, their school, all of that is posted about in the local news. And I'm like, I don't think that that's legal. Like, I'm pretty sure, and again, this is just like from a Canadian perspective, as somebody who has an honors in journalism, is that you're not supposed to do that. You would instead say their ages and their gender. And it's like, so it would be like, four students at a local high school were in the room where, you could say the guy's name because he died, Simon, had an allergic reaction and died. 17-year-old, like 17-year-old girl, 17-year-old guy. but they're saying these kids' names and they're posting their pictures and stuff, and like they have like paparazzi pretty much at this point, like finding them. And like what I remember in school is that you cannot do that. The only time you can ever release the name of a minor is if it's an Amber Alert. Like if that kid is missing, you are allowed to release that information. But once the kid is found and the investigation is like closed, you have to redact that information. And so it's just like, wow. I don't know, like, again, this book is in the States. I don't know, maybe the rules are different in the States, but none of these people were convicted of anything. They just happened to be suspects. And so that's the part that's really like blowing my mind, that I'm like, this feels horribly handled, this entire investigation, because like, these are minors. You can't do this. They're not adults. You can't do this. So yeah, very, very interesting stuff that is kind of going on in this book. So I'm going to continue to read it, and I will update you when I finish it. So I will see you then with my final thoughts. And of course, I will not tell you who killed Simon, because you have to read the book to find out. So I finished One of Us is Lion, and I gotta say, the ending of the book was very just, I don't enjoy when books do what it did for kind of like the conclusion, and then like, I'm like, really? Really? And then you have the epilogue, and I'm like, okay, but what was the whole point of that other scene then, like 3 months later? And it's like, it just felt like a waste of time. It felt like it didn't add anything to the story. Like, I get it, because one of those characters is definitely the type to like, you know, want to seclude themselves, but it wasn't done in a way that was really impactful, because like you turn the page and it's like 3 months later and it's like, oh, okay, don't worry, like here's the rest of that. So I wasn't really into that. I thought it was unnecessary, and I can't believe that I actually guessed the plot twist to this book correctly. And unfortunately for me, when it comes to a murder mystery thriller kind of book like this, I don't want it to be predictable. I have often mentioned about my views on predictability in books, and I don't mind it in most books, but for a murder mystery type of book, I do not want it to be predictable. I do not want to be able to figure it out before the characters do. To me, that kind of defeats the purpose of the whoa kind of moment. So the fact that I was able to figure it out before I was halfway through the book, I was like, okay, didn't really hit as hard, you know? But like, I think if you're not able to guess the plot twist, maybe you'll enjoy the ending a little bit more. But for me, I really didn't, because I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. Does that make sense? I will say though, the character development in this book was really good, especially for Addy's character. I think that she really stole the show the entire book, and she was definitely the character who had gone through the most growth within the time span. I think all of the characters themselves, I liked all of them individually, and I liked kind of their secrets and who they are, and then how they continued to grow and how they kind of handled the stress of everything going around, being like murder suspects and all that. I think that was really, really good. I do find, and again, this could be just because I'm in a different country, but it didn't seem realistic that their names and everything were released to the public as a murder suspect. Interestingly enough, I got one of those alerts on my watch yesterday and was like, potential murder suspect. They described a couple of features of the person, like in the area, but they didn't tell you the name or anything like that, because it's a potential one. And so I don't know if maybe they do it differently in other places, but the fact that these kids' names and everything were just like plastered everywhere and they were featured on the news and stuff, it felt really unrealistic to me. But again, it could just be a cultural difference, who knows? But yeah, I would say overall, probably the first half of this book I definitely enjoyed the most, but then I was finding it getting a bit too repetitive, and I felt like it was dragging on at times as well, where I was like, okay, like, get on with it, please. Like, I think I would have wanted to see them investigate. Like, I would love to see the kids investigate earlier than they actually did. But yeah, I think that's kind of like what I was expecting a little bit more. And I was expecting the Tumblr poster to be a bit more prominent throughout the book. It felt like it was really important at the beginning, but then it started to kind of fall off, which I get the characters weren't checking that often, but I don't know, I was kind of expecting a little bit more of that. I think maybe I expected too much out of this book, and then with being able to figure out who killed Simon, like, yeah, I guess it just kind of ruined the excitement for me, but this is just my opinion. So if you did like this book though, that's great. If this book does sound interesting to you, definitely check it out. I'm not the best usually at figuring out plot twists, so that's why I'm like a little bit disappointed, I think, because I'm like, if I can figure it out, then you know, like maybe it's a bit weak. So today we are going to be awarding One of Us is Lying a total of 3 stars. This is like a low 3 stars though, because I did really enjoy the first half of this book. I had a really good time with it. I loved following the characters along and the development and the mystery that was kind of unfolding. But then for me, it started to kind of plateau and I wasn't really into it as much, and it felt like I was just like wanted to finish the book just so I could finish the book. And I think I just had too high of expectations for it, especially with it going in being so strong. But yeah, that's kind of my experience with this book. Reading is so subjective as well that even though I didn't really enjoy the book after I finished it, but enjoyed parts of it, you could be the complete opposite. Maybe you absolutely hate this book, or it could be like your new favorite book ever. So definitely check it out if it sounds interesting to you. This is just kind of my experience reading the book. So the next book that I'm going to be reading is A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the second book in the Saga of the Unfated series, and I am so excited to read this. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the like button and let me know what kind of murder mystery book should I read next, because I kind of really want to read them. I want to get that same feeling I did when I first read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Nothing has hit hard since then. And if you haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. And really cool news for you, if you've ever wanted to be part of an exclusive community where you can vote directly on which books I will be reading next, access to behind the scenes content, badges, emojis, and much, much more, you actually can by becoming a member of my channel. Anytime someone becomes a member of my channel, it goes directly toward me getting more books that we can read together, more book hauls, and all of that fun stuff. So if that's interesting to you, all the information to becoming a member is in the description to this video, so definitely check that out. And with that, I'm going to wish you warm wishes and fish kisses, and I'll see you in the next video.